So now double click on this Hibernate configuration file. We have to create this connection between database and Hibernate using this hibernate.cfg. Now we have to customize this hibernate.configuration file. So open this hibernate.configuration.xml file and click on this source here. Let us go to the source, and once you are in the source, let us have a look at this file. Let me increase the width of it so that you will be able to see the text clearly. I'm going to make it bold and then 14 and then click OK and apply it. So now this becomes much more clear. Now if you notice, the first one is the connection.driver class, this configuration file. Now what is our driver? Remember, we copy pasted in the notepad the driver. For us it is the org.apache.derby.jdbc client driver. They have used HSQLDB, but for us we are going to use the org.apache.derby.jdbc driver. So just copy this and paste it here inside the properties. The next step is the connection URL. That also we had copied it while setting up the database connection. So let us copy that entire thing. Remember, we changed the name of the database to Hibernate DB, so that's what it is here. So let's copy and then paste it right here. That is the connection URL. If you remember, our username was user and password was password. Password was password. Now that's it. Now you can leave this as it is, connection.poolsize as 2. Now what is this dialect all about? What is the dialect for Derby? To find out what is the dialect for Derby or for whatever the database you're using, you can go to this Hibernate 3, that our user library. You can see that it is there somewhere in org.hibernate.dialect. So go and search of that org.hibernate in that hibernate 3.jar. Let me go and search of that hibernate 3.jar. In hibernate 3.jar, you can see that in org.hibernate.dialect, you have all these dialects. For HSQL dialect, for HSQLDB, this is the dialect. So for Derby, this is the dialect, that is org.hibernate.dialect.derby dialect. So let us go change this to Derby dialect. And then click on save. Okay. Now here for this current session context class, let us put it as thread. We will see why it is thread later on. I will explain to you like why we are giving this property as thread, and rest of them we can keep it as it is. The show SQL true, that means like whenever like we have this SQL statements running inside Hibernate, it will show up in the log. So let's keep that true. This one is drop and recreate the database schema on startup. Let us comment this out. The reason is we are going to like recreate the database inside the code, not here in the properties file. And here mapping resources, I think this one they have used the configuration file, but we are going to use the JPA annotations. So let us comment out these 3 lines. We don't need these 3 lines. So we can just click on source and add block comment. So we have commented out all these 3 lines, recreating the database. We are going to do it in code, and the mapping file, we don't need it. We are going to use annotations. So the rest of them remains the same. Now what is the use of this dialect? That is, even though SQL's is like universal SQL statements, it differs from database to database. Like a SQL, like simple SQL statements will run the same in every database, like select asterisk from or star from, employee table. It will run on all the database. But then when you go to joins and all those things, each and every database has a different way of writing that particular SQL statement. So what happens is Hibernate needs to know which database you're talking to, so that it will create the SQL statements for you in that particular dialect of that particular database. So that's the reason for this Derby dialect. So now we have actually completed the setup, the Eclipse database and Hibernate setup. Once again, let me do a quick review. To set up Eclipse, we first downloaded and installed the JDK and then the Eclipse. And then for the database, we downloaded Derby, and then we went to the bin directory of Derby and double clicked on start network server.bat, and that started the database. To configure this connection, the Eclipse to database connection, what we did is we went to this Eclipse and we went to Windows Open Perspective, and then we clicked on Other, and then we selected the database development and click OK. Here I created a new connection, and you can you can go and look back at the video if you forgot about it. So, and then I made the connection. This one, my computer just crashed, so I am making the connection once again. And once I create the connection, that completes the Eclipse and database connection. To do the Eclipse and Hibernate, what I did was I first created a user library. To create a user library, I went to Windows, and then I went to Preferences, and over here. So for connection between Eclipse and Hibernate, what we did is we went to the Preferences, Windows Preferences, we selected user library, we created a new user library, and we added all these jar files to the user library. And then what we did is we went to the particular project that we created before, and to the project we created, we added the particular user library. To add the user library, what we did is we went to the Hibernate example project, we clicked on properties, and over here we went to Java build path, libraries tab, and then we selected add library, user library, and we went on like that. Okay, good. The next step that we did was, if you remember, it was the database and Hibernate connection. To do the connection, we copied hibernate.cfg.xml from an existing project that came with the download, and after we pasted the hibernate.cfg.xml, we changed the values here in the connection.driver class from what we received these values while making the database connection configuration, and the connection URL, username and password, and we changed the dialect and this session context class to thread. And we also commented out this database schema, recreate the database and the event and person, all these configuration files. So this completes the setup. So we are done with the setup of Eclipse database and Hibernate.